Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Despite coming from different backgrounds, Colin and Dawn Provine have always shared many interests in common. From the time they first met at Freshmen at Yale, Colin and Dawn developed a great friendship that gradually bloomed into love and marriage. They attribute their success as a kick-ass couple to having similar values. Both hardworking achievers, they balance work and play by scheduling time out every day to enjoy each other's company. In today's recap edition episode, Kim and I will share our key takeaways from our interview with this dynamic couple. We'll break down concepts, relationship qualities, and key pillar points that they've used to build their rock-solid relationship that will stand the test of time. Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. I am so excited to see you, to be with you, but most excited to be sitting next to this lovely Mamba Jamba, my bride and life partner for more than 27 years.
A Mamba Jamba?
Mamba Jamba.
Okay.
If a guy is a Mac Daddy, what's a woman?
I don't know.
Mamba Jamba?
Mamba Jamba, I'm not.
Head honcho? Mi jefa? I don't know. Whatever expletives, superlatives I can think of to put you in the highest stead. Good. I love doing this with you and sharing. And this is a great couple that we are talking a recap episode for both Dawn and Colin Provine, somebody that we've known for a while, been married. And so I'm going to let you jump in and share what was one of the takeaways that you had with this most kick-ass couple.
So I think right off the bat, the first thing that Colin noted was that they were friends first. They met in college, freshman year. I think they were even on the same dorm hall and met each other that way and would hang out in groups. And then I think it sounded like they broke off from that group and then just started hanging out together. And what that really said to me was that they were friends first, and the foundation of the relationship started on a great friendship. And we talk in our podcast a lot about the friendship system and how important that is to have as a foundation in your relationship.
I agree. And I think that's a great point to talk about, because friendship really is the foundation of a relationship. It's not love, then friendship. Love is an emotion, right? And it comes and goes and fleets and ebbs and flows. But you got to like the person you're with before you can really love them. And it's the things of friendship that keep you tied together. And you want someone, your spouse, obviously, I hope that everybody out there listening feels that their spouse is their best friend, somebody you want to turn to first. And establishing that friendship system is critical, because I think that really gave them that strong foundation. I totally agree with that, Kim. And I think that you and I became friends first. You were there for me as a friend before we were really romantic. And we've talked about this before, but Kim was the one friend that responded and showed up when my mom passed away, and I was alone in this house with her where she was, and no one could be there for a few days, no family members. I had no friends in that area. And Kim came up, and we really established our friendship that weekend pretty deeply. And that was a foundation. And I think too is they not only did they establish it in college, and I think that's what has allowed them to make it for the long haul, but they continue to develop it and invest in it. And they know it has to be there to keep them going strong.
Yeah, absolutely. What about another takeaway that you had from this interview?
Yeah, something Colin shared a quote from one of his professors, which I thought was kind of telling. He said, this is his professor's advice to him. He said, marry for values, not for love. Because what you have in common is the key to the relationship over time. And those values, and it doesn't mean, and you might take that the wrong way when you hear it, but it doesn't mean you don't have love or love's not important.
Right.
It is, but if your values are in alignment, meaning what your priorities are and what your outlook of life is and how you think you need to approach the relationship and family, those values have to tie you together. And we have in our 14 pillars, these are values. These are values that have to be present in every successful relationship. And if those values aren't strong and they're not tied together, then it's going to be meaningless over time.
Yeah, I think alignment of values is huge. You may be someone that family is really super important to you and you like to entertain family and have family over, and maybe you come from a really large family. But what if your partner, the person that you're dating, isn't used to having a lot of family around, doesn't necessarily like to entertain a bunch of family? I think later that could be an issue that could cause some conflict in your relationship. So there's just a small example of, not having the same maybe values or interests could potentially be an issue.
Right. And I think that those are kind of the things you want to discuss in advance, right? Or before
Absolutely.
You make a commitment, because you want to discover and understand that this person that you're spending your life with, that you're never going to leave and always be there for, is in alignment with you. Otherwise, it can really make for some difficult conversations and situations later. So I
Sure.
appreciate that idea. And I think that it wasn't just something that the professor said, it was something that they both agreed, and they were in alignment. They developed that friendship system. They thought they had a little different background growing up. And obviously we're all not carbon copies of each other, but I think that they really aligned in what they felt was most important in their relationship, in their family, in their careers. And that has led to a wonderful relationship that's been successful now.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that stood out to me personally was they built their relationship on this friendship system. And then from there, the commitment to each other came. And I think that proved to be really important later on in their relationship, because they both had trajectories of a lot of education, right, coming up under them, and then continued education with being a doctor, and then Colin being in a corporate world where he traveled globally a lot. And so I think that friendship system then rolled into a very big commitment with each other, because when you have two people who are in that type of trajectory, it gets a little hectic. And then you invite kids, you get married and you invite kids into that. And, you've got one person in med school who's working just literally hours and hours every single day, probably is barely around. And so that commitment really shined through their relationship, because they were able to navigate that difficult time with the commitment that they had with each other.
And there's going to be seasons in your relationship, right, in your lives, where the spotlight may go from one spouse to the other.
Absolutely.
Whether it's work or with kids, or maybe a family situation, taking care of a loved one. So there's always going to be those ups and downs. And I love that idea too, is that they talked about the concept of filling in the gaps, and they each took it upon themselves to fill in the gaps for the other person, whatever it might need to be. And, doing the dishes, right? Is it cooking? Is it cleaning the house? Colin talked about one of his specialties is back rubs and foot rubs.
Yeah.
And has she had a really tough time, one of those 24, 36-hour shifts that she would pull as a physician? And did she need that? And, he said it didn't feel obligatory ever because they were both each looking out and looking for the opportunities, right, to fill the tank for the other one or ease the burden. And that was something that they learned through her med school process. He said, gosh, I feel like I went through med school and I learned the terms and people would say, so what are you a doctor of? Because he knew the lingo. And then with his travel and his business demands, being pulled out of the house a lot all the time, they weren't overburdened by those things or put out, but really thought, hey, here's my time to shine, because they knew they were each there for each other. It wasn't quid pro quo. And it was really about teamwork, right?
Yeah.
And that long-term commitment that they had to do for each other. So it's learning, and they had to learn how to do things together. And at the same time, they said we grew together because, Dawn said, when he learned something new, or he would go have an experience, or through one of his board work or some of the community service, he would come back and share with her what he learned. So she felt like, wow, I got double because he got it, I get it. And then when she would learn something or have an experience professionally in her service, in her career, she would make sure that she took him through it. So that teamwork allowed them to both enrich each other through their own experiences. It wasn't just something that one of them experienced and not the other, but they brought that back to the relationship, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest takeaways from Dawn and Colin were that they're very in tune to each other and have been over all of these years. And it has made them very successful as a couple because they're paying attention to what the needs of their spouse is. And they're stepping in and filling, like you said, that gap, or doing whatever is necessary to really keep each other in a joyful state.
Yeah, that was
in a fulfilled state.
Yeah,
imagine med school with a baby. You're fatigued mentally and physically, and then Colin again traveling globally. There had to be some moments that were really challenging for them. But I feel like they really rose to the top because they were there for each other and really in tune with each other.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now. They were, and it doesn't mean that they were the same person. I think I want to make sure everybody understands. If you haven't heard this episode, you go back and listen to it because it's a beautiful example of taking the differences and melding them together. She said, hey, I'm from Brooklyn and I'm a doctor. I speak my mind, right? I'm going to call it like it is, and we're going to get out in front. And Colin said, I'm a lot more reserved. I'm Southern, genteel, and that's okay because they took those two styles and they developed their own language, and they figured out, they said, we want to go back and say that they coined the term OMG, because they were using it 30 years ago before it was hip and hot, or now maybe a little tired after being so much used, but they have a lot of nonverbal communication, inside jokes, nicknames. She said we could be working a party and I could just by a glance say, hey, he's really into that conversation. He's enjoying himself, or giving each other the eyebrows like, okay, it's time to go. Let's wrap things up. Or, hey, I need some rescue over here. This, get me out of this conversation. I'm not having so much fun. So they really learned to look at those verbal and nonverbal cues and take advantage of that communication with one another.
Yeah, I thought that was a very cute expression of their relationship, that they don't even have to speak out loud to each other, that they can really just communicate with a lot of nonverbal facial expressions, maybe moving their head a certain way. I thought that was really cute.
And what was neat is that he said, we developed our communication style before we were romantic with each other.
Yeah, in college that started.
So, and they were able to keep that effective. So they had deep, meaningful communication that wasn't clouded by the sexual intimacy. And they had really learned how to communicate and be effective first. So it wasn't something that, they had to add or inject later in their relationship.
Sure. One of the other things that I wanted to point out is that, when you think of a couple that are highly motivated and are both really just kind of during the day, they're in their own vortexes, right? And then coming back together later in the day, or maybe even later in the evening, they're not coming back together because they have social functions or things that they need to do separately. How do they come together? How do they find time to communicate? How do they stay connected? And I loved hearing them say that, they text, they might be pulling out of the driveway and just intentionally pick up the phone and call each other. They leave sticky notes for each other. And they love spending time together and having fun together. So I loved hearing how, even though they're both so busy and kind of sucked into their own worlds, they are finding time to communicate and finding time to have fun together.
Yeah, you got to play together and have fun. And she said that, she talked about later in one of her favorite pillars outside of the 3 C's, she said was fun and humor. She goes, anything that tickles my brain, I love, and comedy. And, she said, my kids think I'm crazy because I have a wacky approach to life sometimes, but Colin knows that and is able to, try to make her laugh and do things. And they watch funny movies together and they do things that are going to feed them and allow them to have that time together, whether it's watching a movie, having a great conversation, and they really make sure, going to the beach. He said, like, golly, one of the gifts we gave ourselves during COVID was going to the beach. And, like every weekend, he goes, it was a thing we could do together. Kids didn't mind it. It was their chance to bond and have fun. So really taking the time to seek those opportunities to create the connections and have the time together and doing things together. I thought that was great. And,
Sure.
And one of the things, we always talk about conflict resolution, Kim, is kind of one of the third pillars. And I think that I loved their approach. Colin said, we don't have a lot of conflict. When we do, it's about little stuff that's pretty unimportant. It's usually about letting each other vent and get something off their chest. But he said the key for them is to manage the expectations. And I think that, if you have unrealistic expectations for your spouse on what they're gonna do or not do for you, or how they're gonna handle or not handle things as they come up, I think that's a real rub. And I think talking about that with each other, if that's something you haven't done in your relationship, is making sure that you understand what your spouse's expectations are for you in any given situation. That could be a social engagement that's coming up. That could be something that's going on in your family, or how you're going to navigate something together. Even taking a vacation together, right? What are your expectations for me on how much time I'm going to be able to spend with the family, or how much time I need to work? Something I did with Kim, we've got spring break coming up with our kids. And I said, listen, I'm going to be present and be in the moment, but there's some critical things I've got to take care of and I've got to work. And she said, that's great. Can you make sure it's heavy loaded in the front side of the vacation, so on the back side, when families are around, we can really take advantage of and enjoy that time together? So it's creating those expectations and making sure that everybody's on board with them. And he said, you've got to make sure too that, he talked about that the destination of where they're going is not as important, but more about what's the journey like for us together. So it's not about where we're going to arrive and where we're going and what we're going to achieve, but are they working together and on the same page in the process, right? And when the conflict arises, if they set those expectations and they're really partnering on that journey together, he said, they can be honest and frank with each other and address the issues and not let them fester. And we've heard that before. And I think in issues, conflicts are going to arise. And I think that most people don't love conflict, getting in there and getting messy and getting dirty. And I know that we in our relationship don't necessarily love it, but I think when we're able to openly and honestly, frankly, address those issues and handle them in the moment, we can take care of them and put them to bed before they become major issues.
Sure. I think that also it's important to note that they arrived at that later on in their relationship, and being able to do that. I think in the beginning, Dawn has the personality of, I'm going to diagnose it, I'm going to hammer it away at it, and I'm going to find out, we're going to resolve this, we're going to fix it, we're going to get in there. And I think over time that Colin has sort of softened her a little bit and has made it a little bit easier for her to just sort of blow hot really fast for 10 minutes, right? Let her get it out. Let her say what she's going to say. And then she's good at just, okay, I've said it. I'm good. We don't really have to fix it right now. We're able to just sort of talk about it and work through it. And I think that, that's something that they learned over time to do.
Yeah, I think, all kick-ass couples have learned how to address issues as they arise and knock them out while they're small. And sometimes, we've always talked about, it's not about whose opinion wins the day, whether it's yours or mine, but really understanding why that's important or why it's frustrating or why it drives them crazy. And if you seek understanding, then it allows you to know how to handle the situation or treat them the way they need to be treated when those moments arise. And I think that, all kick-ass couples do this. Everybody that we have talked to and interviewed thus far in our podcast, and we're coming up, we're in the 40s now, guys. We're almost up to our 50th episode here soon. We'll be celebrating that with Kick-Ass Couples Nation. But it's, everybody that's successful in their relationship knows how to do the dance of handling things and putting them to bed before they blow up. Before they blow up, or really explode.
And so I think that really this podcast or this interview really for me, my biggest takeaways were manage expectations, right? I loved what you said about that because it is so true. And it's so vital in a relationship to have those discussions, but also again, making sure that when something arises, let's get it out in the open and let's talk about it before it really does become a huge challenge for us.
Yeah. And I think that Dawn's willingness, she said, you know what, we're going to figure out how to go over it, through it, around it, underneath it. Yeah. If I got to get a ladder and climb, we're going to get there. And I think that, that willingness to figure out, and like I said, it's not the willingness, we're going to solve it. We're going to solve it. We're going to solve it. But we're going to understand each other's viewpoints on it and give respect, to the feelings that somebody may have on that issue. And man, when you identify a landmine, you go, okay, I need to not go there then, because it's going to recreate. It's a trigger. It's going to create trauma. Yeah. It's going to create carnage. It's going to bring up bad emotions, bad juju, bad feelings.
And then we're going to have days of unrest.
And when you want to have the love and respect for your partner, your spouse in that relationship, you got to be willing to give them what they need.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great interview. If you have not seen this interview in its entirety, I hope you'll go back and listen at Kickass Couples Podcast.
Yeah, check them out and see what they have to say. It was a wonderful interview, a great viewpoint, two people in deep professional careers that are still working, not quite empty nesters. They have kids in the mix, tough, demanding jobs, but they found a way to develop the systems, to get agreement on the values, and to figure out how they can have a fun and spirited and lively dance with each other that keeps them happy and moving on in life.
Yeah, and they even find time to give back in a big way to their community, to schools, and to other professional organizations. So kudos to you.
We're glad to have had the time with them. And if you found value in this recap or any other episode, please drop us a line, give us a review. If there's something that you wish we would ask, if you've got questions that you want to know the answers to, we can ask other couples and say how they did it and how did they respond. We'll share our viewpoints on those. So please drop us a line. You can send us an email at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com. Let us know the burning questions you'd like to get answered, and we will do our best to get those for you. So thanks for tuning in today. Like us, share us, rate us, review us, and come back and keep on listening. And remember that happily ever after does not just happen. We'll see y'all soon.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband: Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.